All right, welcome in everyone to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at Canadian politics.
Okay.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's future
Sounds good.
and whether or not Canadians want to see an early election.
Yep.
So we've got two sources here.
Right.
We've got an article from Sault Ste. Marie News called Poll, Most Say Trudeau Should Go and Want Early Election.
Interesting.
And we also have a Reddit thread from the Sir Canada subreddit, which is basically just discussing this article.
Yeah, so we're kind of getting like a
Yeah.
two birds with one stone kind of thing.
Exactly. We're really trying to get a feel for
Mhm.
public opinion here.
Yeah, and what's interesting is we're not just getting like the
Right.
top level, like, oh, I think this, we're
Right.
kind of getting into like the nuances and the anxieties,
Mhm.
the potential implications of these opinions for the upcoming election.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting because, like, right off
Yeah.
the bat, this Sault Ste. Marie News poll shows that, the majority of their readers believe that Trudeau should step down
Mm-hmm.
and that Canada needs an election before October 2025.
Right.
But then it gets,
It makes sense.
yeah.
But it gets even more interesting when you
Yeah.
start to look at the breakdown of opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. And
What's really standing out to me is the difference of opinions based on federal voting intention.
yeah, totally.
So, we see that conservatives are overwhelmingly in favor of an early election and Trudeau's departure, which,
Makes sense. I mean,
yeah,
if you think about it, like conservatives,
yeah,
historically, like they challenge incumbent governments,
Mhm.
Especially when there's like kind of a feeling of economic uncertainty
exactly. Yeah, and
or dissatisfaction.
with the current leadership, so it's not surprising that
They're leaning in that direction.
exactly.
And then on the other hand, you have the liberals who are kind of like, nah, not really.
Right, we're good.
We're okay.
We're comfortable.
We're okay with how things are going.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a really stark
Mhm.
contrast, right?
But the thing that I found really surprising was that age of the respondents doesn't seem to
Yeah.
play a significant role.
Yeah, that was super interesting.
Yeah.
Both young and old Canadians seem to
Yeah.
be kind of united in this
Yeah.
desire for change, regardless of the.
Yeah, it seems to run deeper than just
Yeah.
typical partisan divides, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's a shared frustration with like the perceived stagnation of the political landscape,
Yeah.
or a sense that like the current leadership isn't effectively addressing like the
anxieties.
anxieties of Canadians, regardless of their age.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's move on to this Reddit thread because this is where it gets really juicy.
Oh yeah, this is where the people are.
This is where the people are,
Yes.
and it's, as you might expect,
Right.
it's full of diverse
Mm.
and often strongly worded opinions.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing a lot of comments reflecting this desire for change.
Mm-hmm.
Even some users explicitly calling for Trudeau to, take the hint
Take the hint.
and resign.
And what I'm seeing a lot is like, even if it's kind of couched in humor, there's this
Right.
disconnect between
Mm.
the political elite
Yeah.
and like the everyday realities of Canadians.
Yeah.
Like, there's that one comment, comparing politicians to celebrities living in a bubble.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, just totally
Oblivious to the struggles of
yeah,
ordinary people,
yeah. And it's funny, but
Yeah.
there's truth to it.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, but
Yeah.
like, you can't
Yeah.
deny
No,
that there is some truth in those statements.
for sure.
And beyond the jokes, there does seem to be like this
Yeah.
genuine concern about the
Mhm.
direction of the country,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're seeing people who are worried about the economy,
Of course. Yeah.
worried about the rising cost of living,
Mm-hmm.
worried about, the future of healthcare,
Absolutely.
social programs.
Mhm.
Um,
And I think it's important to note that,
Yeah.
like, while some people are kind of expressing these concerns through humor or
Yeah.
frustration,
Yeah.
others are
yeah.
articulating well-reasoned arguments.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely like
Or for
a
instance,
spectrum of,
Yeah.
of ideas there.
like, one user was highlighting the potential consequences for the Liberal Party if Trudeau remains in power.
Yeah.
Like, they believe a change in leadership is necessary for the party's long-term
Survival.
survival and success.
Yeah. And of course, we can't forget
Right.
the NDP and all of
Yeah.
this. But
Yeah, because
their decision to support Trudeau's government.
has sparked quite a debate.
Oh, yeah. That's caused,
There's a lot of waves.
especially among those who who lean left, but aren't necessarily thrilled with Trudeau's leadership.
Right, right. So they're kind of like, oh, yeah,
We
they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, they're in this weird...
It's like conundrum.
The NDP holds this unique position in Canadian politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
They represent a significant portion of left-leaning voters,
Yeah.
and their support for Trudeau's minority government has been instrumental in passing key legislation.
Yeah.
But this alliance creates this dilemma for some voters who disapprove of Trudeau, but then they're like, well, if I withdraw my support from the NDP,
right, then what happens?
What happens?
Yeah.
You know, does that pave the way for a conservative victory?
Right, right.
So and some people on Reddit are even like speculating about what concessions
what are they getting?
the NDP might be getting from the Liberals in exchange for their support.
In exchange for that continued support.
Yeah, which is really interesting, right?
Yeah, it raises questions about...
It does, like, you know...
the nature of political alliances.
The nature of political alliances and the compromises involved in governing a diverse country like Canada.
Absolutely. It shows just how complex all this is.
It highlights the complex calculations and the strategic considerations that go into political decision-making.
Yeah, and especially in a multi-party system like Canada.
In a multi-party system, yeah.
All right, so it's not all doom and gloom, though, for Trudeau, right?
Right, exactly.
There are
some voices in the Reddit thread defending his record.
Yeah, pointing to things like CR, which, just so our listener knows, stands for the Canada Emergency Response Benefit.
Yes.
Which was... you know, a crucial economic lifeline for millions of Canadians during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
It provided financial support.
To those who had lost their jobs.
To those who lost their jobs or had their income significantly reduced. Due to the lockdowns and the economic disruptions.
Absolutely. So that was a big one.
Yeah, that was huge.
And then other people praising Trudeau's investments in tech hubs.
Right, yeah.
And... the single child benefit.
Yeah, so there are definitely...
So there's definitely a range
of perspectives.
A perspective out there. I thought one user actually did a really good job of kind of laying out like the perceived positives and negatives of Trudeau's leadership.
Yeah, I thought that was quite insightful.
Yeah, they kind of acknowledged his charisma on the world stage.
Yeah.
You know, his progressive social policies, but also criticized his handling of the national debt.
Yeah.
And the ongoing housing affordability crisis.
Which is huge. You know, that's a big...
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's a big issue.
It's a big issue.
That's a perfect example of the nuanced perspective we need to bring to these discussions. You know, it encourages us to move beyond like these simplistic labels and actually engage with the complexities of political leadership.
Yeah.
Right? Recognizing both the achievements and the shortcomings.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not black and white.
Not at all. It's a lot of gray.
Lots of gray.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of those complexities,
you
know, we can't forget about the Conservative Party led by Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah.
Both the Sault Ste. Marie news poll and the Reddit thread seem to suggest that they're well positioned for a potential victory in the next election.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a sense that, you know, the political winds are shifting. But I don't think a Conservative win is like a sure thing at this point.
Right.
You know, a lot can happen between now and then.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's still like a good amount of uncertainty about what their policies would actually look like in practice.
Yeah, and that uncertainty
like they would form a government
is what's fueling anxiety for a lot of Canadians, right? Like you see some Reddit users expressing concern about, you know, potential cuts to social programs, deregulation of industries, and like a shift towards more conservative social policies.
Yeah.
But then again, there are others that welcome that prospect of change, right?
Totally, yeah.
They're arguing that the Conservatives offer a much-needed alternative.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the status quo.
And one user, I thought this was really interesting.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm just hoping for a complete reset of party leaders across the board.
Interesting.
They just felt that, you know, Canadian politics has become so stagnant with the same faces and the same ideas.
Right, that desire for a reset.
Yeah.
Is really interesting, right? It reflects a yearning for something new.
Yeah.
A break from the the perceived predictability and limitations of the current political system.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you see that echoed in other comments where people are calling for like fresh perspectives, new voices in Canadian politics.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating how both like the Sault Ste. Marie news poll, which is very, regionally focused.
Right, yeah.
And then this Reddit thread, which is nationwide. It kind of offers these glimpses into like the complex and sometimes like contradictory currents flowing through Canadian society right now.
It's like we're getting this snapshot of the national conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Capturing all the hopes, the fears, the frustrations that Canadians are grappling with as they kind of navigate this world that feels increasingly
uncertain
and unpredictable.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, as we kind of come to the end of our deep dive into Canadian politics, what are some of the key takeaways?
Okay, so key takeaways
that you think our listeners should be considering.
First and foremost, Justin Trudeau's leadership is facing some significant headwinds. Public opinion seems to be shifting. Growing dissatisfaction, desire for change. This upcoming election is going to be a crucial test.
Big time.
For him and his party. Second, the Conservative Party under Pierre Poilievre gaining momentum. They're capitalizing on that public desire for change. And presenting themselves as a viable alternative. However, there are legitimate concerns about what a conservative government would actually mean for Canada.
Particularly...
especially when it comes to...
social and economic policies.
Yeah, for sure.
And we also can't overlook the NDP's role in all of this. Their decision to support Trudeau...
That's right.
...has generated this heated debate. Especially among left-leaning voters. Who are kind of caught between their desire for progressive policies but their concerns about Trudeau.
Tough spot.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in.
For sure.
And finally, it's evident that Canadians are deeply engaged in the political process.
Absolutely.
Even if that engagement sometimes manifests as frustration. Cynicism, or even humor. That Reddit thread is a testament to that engagement.
Absolutely.
It showcases the passion, the thoughtfulness
that Canadians bring to political discourse.
It's a reminder that politics isn't just something that's happening, in Ottawa.
It's not
a lived reality.
It's a lived reality that affects every Canadian's life. The decisions these politicians make have real-world consequences for people's jobs, their health care, their education, their well-being.
Yeah, for sure. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Canadian politics, we want to leave you with this question.
Okay, hit us with it.
Given all the diverse perspectives and the potential consequences that we've talked about today, what factors
are those factors
are going to ultimately influence your own voting decision?
Ooh, good question.
In the next Canadian federal election.
That is the question, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
That is the question, right? I mean, we've explored the poll results. We've dissected the Reddit reactions. We even dove into, the complexities of the NDP and all this. But what does it all mean for you when you're, standing there at the voting booth?
Well, I think it really boils down to, what are your priorities? And what are your values as a Canadian? Is it economic stability? Is it social justice? Environmental protection? Something else entirely. And then you have to think about which party's platform aligns the best with your vision for Canada's future.
Absolutely. And it's not always an easy decision to make.
No, not at all. Because
especially when you see how polarized.
Yeah, it's easy to
get swept up in all the
rhetoric and the partisan noise.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it's just so important to,
stay informed.
And really engage in
in that thoughtful
reflection about all.
Don't just rely on, sound bites or social media posts for your information.
No, at least.
Seek out those reliable sources. Listen to those diverse perspectives. Engage in respectful dialogue with those who hold different views. And I think perhaps most importantly, trust your own judgment.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen time and time again just how passionate Canadians are about their politics, which is
it's fantastic.
It's a good thing, right? But it's also important to,
approach it with a critical eye.
A critical eye, yeah.
Recognize that.
And recognize that there's not always like
there's rarely a simple solution.
Simple solution,
to these complex challenges.
Yeah, for sure. So I think hopefully this deep dive has,
given you some
food for thought.
Food for thought.
As you navigate it.
The world of Canadian politics.
Absolutely.
We've kind of gone over,
we've seen the challenges.
The challenges that Trudeau's facing.
The potential implications of that conservative victory. The conundrum that's facing left-leaning voters.
Absolutely. We've seen how all these anxieties about, the economy.
The cost of living.
The cost of living.
Future of social programs.
Yeah, how all of that is, playing out in public discourse right now. And it's just a reminder.
And most importantly,
that Canadian politics.
It's dynamic.
It's dynamic and ever-evolving.
Ever-evolving.
It's never boring.
Never boring.
That's for sure.
That is for sure. So, as you consider the upcoming election and the choices that you're going to be making, ask yourself this, do you see these trends that we've been talking about as indicative of like
a broader shift.
A broader shift.
In Canadian politics?
In Canadian politics.
Or is this just like a temporary fluctuation?
Temporary blip, yeah.
In a system that ultimately remains stable and resilient?
Yeah.
That's the question.
That's the question.
It deserves.
It really does.
Your thoughtful consideration.
Because the answer might shape the future of Canada.
Absolutely.
For years to come.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.